welcome back to FordeeTV. I'm your host, Fordee. So today we are going to create an abstract piece of art, a 3D paint stroke, if you will, inside Cinema 4D, and then finishing it off in After Effects, So we're going to go for something like this. In fact, we're probably going to make it a bit better, right? For this texture of the paint stroke, what I did is I found a liquid pour, This is actually one of my pieces of artwork. This was made with broken pieces of glass in the black area and black sand mixed together, and in the center we've got a liquid acrylic pour. Bada bing, bada boom. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press M on my keyboard. I'm gonna come over here, and we're getting started already, right? I'm gonna select a portion of this, something like that, and I'm gonna crop it, right? After I crop it, I'm going to save this out, and we're going to use this. Real quick, I'll switch over here just to show you. You're going to want to grab a paint stroke, right, from the web. You can go to your web browser, search for brusheasy.com, type in paint stroke. Be careful, on the top here, this is all sponsors from stuff from iStock, so this is paid stuff. Anything with like a green little thing right here is paid, but you can find free stuff like here, etc. Find a paint stroke that works for you. I ended up using this in the tutorial, So again, we're gonna come over here and we wanna save this out somewhere that we can recall it again inside Cinema 4D. So I'm gonna say File, Save As. Where is this going? And I'm gonna save it as a TIFF file. All right, so now that we've got that saved out, let's jump into Cinema 4D, bada bing, bada boom. First, I'm actually gonna create the texture. So I'll double click over here in my materials pane. I'll double click on the material I just painted. I'll come over here to texture. I'll click on this and I'll say load image. Go ahead and find where you put the image, load it in, and you should be good, So it's gonna ask you, do you wanna copy this to the project path? You could say yes or you could say no. It depends. If you have problems, then definitely say yes. I said no, but depending, Next, I'm going to come over here, click on the drop arrow, and I'm going to say layer. After creating that layer, I'll click on the button, and then I'll add an effect. In the effect, let's go ahead and select hue, saturation, lightness. Now, for example, if I wanted to change the hue of this, I could drag this over. If we wanted to make it blue, for example, or like a teal, or like a yellow, etc. I like this purple right here. Let's bump up the saturation, and we're gonna darken it just a hair. Or maybe we set this to 0, the lightness set to 0. Next, we're gonna come over to effect. We're gonna set brightness and contrast, and we're just gonna, well, I don't know. Actually, we'll leave that there. Let's just let's delete the brightness and contrast. We'll come over to effect. We'll say clip color, and we'll set the low clip to 10% and the high clip to 90%. This is going to give it a lot more contrast, and that looks pretty cool, Next, we're going to turn off the reflectance layer. We don't need that. We're going to come over here to the alpha. We'll turn it on, and we are going to load that brush stroke, right? Again, I said no, but it's up to you. If you have problems in Cinema 4D, go ahead and say yes to copy it to the program, to the project path. Next, one of the things you'll notice is what's going on with our texture. That's because we need to invert the alpha. When we click on that, we're golden. So I'll go ahead and close this out, and now we have our material created here. That's pretty cool. We might need to make some other changes, but we'll see. Next, let's go ahead and draw in a helix. So come over here to where the pen is located, select the helix, and next we want to change the plane that it's existing on to XZ. That looks pretty cool. Next, you want to adjust these properties to suit your needs, right? If you want the top of this helix to be larger than the bottom, for example, or the bottom to be larger, then you're going to adjust the start radius and the end radius, right? So for example, if I want my end radius to be smaller, I would do something like this. We could also change the height by bumping this up. On my keyboard, if I press 2 and drag, I'm zooming out, right? Panning out. Pulling away, etc. Anyways, one of the things we can also do is let's go into our render settings and let's set the output to be 2500 by 2500. Boom. We'll say 150 dots per inch, just in case you want to print it. and everything else is looking mighty fine. We'll click over here on save. We'll turn on alpha channel because we want to save with the alpha channel. I'll select PNG, change it to 16 bits, and we're looking good. I'm not going to turn on certain other things in the render settings until later, or actually we could, because it shouldn't affect it. Ambient occlusion, let's add it. Global illumination, let's add it, and I'll close my render settings. Next, let's add a camera. I'm going to do that by clicking here, and my camera set at 36 millimeter. That's fine. I'll click on the camera to make sure I'm looking through that, and let's we preliminarily lining this up right now, but this helix is doing nothing, right? So we need to come over here and add a primitive, add a plane. On this plane, let's go ahead and turn the height to be, I don't know, 1500 centimeters, and let's set the width to 300 centimeters. We'll change the width segments to 25 and the height segments to 1,000. All right, looking cool, right? Next, on this plane, we're going to want to add some changes, some deformations. Let's add a displacer. We'll come over here. We'll drop the displacer inside the plane. Inside the displacer, we want to change the shading and click on the shader and come down to noise. Boom, looking wild, yo. This is a little bit too noisy, So we'll click on the noise right here and we'll bump up the global scale to 500%. When we do that, this looks a little bit less. This looks like wet paint on a piece of concrete, etc. So that looks pretty cool, Next, we could come over here and we can make further changes to it if we want to deform it even more, but really I'm just going to grab this spline wrap. I'm going to make sure the spline wrap is selected. I'll come over here to the spline, I'll click on this button and select the helix, right? After I do that, one of the things that we're going to notice is this spline wrap should be inside the plane. Next, oh man, what is going on? What's going on? That's because we need to change the axis from plus X to plus Z. When we do that, now we're seeing some magic, yo. One of the things we might notice here is this brush stroke is quite large compared to our helix. So if we come over to our helix and we look at this stuff, why don't we change this from 200 and 370? Let's change that to 700 and 400, right? Maybe even bump up the height. Say, yo, get bigger, yo, something to this effect. I don't know. I'm going to zoom out by pressing 2 on my keyboard and then 1 to bring it down a little bit, and we can reposition this more in a second, One of the other things we might want to do is come over here to spline wrap and we can change things. Like, for example, the size. If we click on this twirly arrow right here, we could say that we want the tips or the end of this brush stroke, which will be the beginning and the end, are located here. If we press Command in the middle, we're saying keep the size in the middle the same, but here we're going to drop this down. Notice that we're making the end of this brush stroke come down to a point. That looks pretty cool, We'll do the same thing up here, and maybe that's too much. Maybe it doesn't have to be that way, right? I don't know. It's up to you. But hey, let's say it is fine, right? So I'll go ahead and click on that size. If we want to change the rotation of this, for example, we can click and we can drag this up, and notice we are changing how this spline is rotated, right? So we're going to leave it at, we're not even going to make a change here, but I'm just showing that you have that option. Next, we can't see what's going on because we don't have the texture applied. Let's come over here, drop the texture on the plane, and we're looking fantabulous. Hey, maybe let's go back to the spline and see if rotating it will make it look even cooler, right? So there we go. That's looking all right. Well, I don't know, So maybe what we do is press 3 on our keyboard and we change the angle here, right? Maybe one of the other things that we do is we want this to be a little bit thicker. So we come over here, we'll change this to 500, and now our brush stroke is thicker. Next, we'll come back over here to the spline wrap, and maybe we switch to the size, and maybe we don't want it to look like that, right? Let's see what it looks like if we increase this. Actually, this one will be easier because it's in view. And maybe something a little bit more, something like that, something like this. And then the other thing we can do is play with the offset. If we drag this offset, we're changing where this sexy, beautiful brush stroke is going. So that's looking mighty fine. I'm going to click 1 on my keyboard to reposition this right here. And I'm pretty much really enjoying the way this puppy looks, right? Let's make sure that our plane goes into a subdivision surface. So we'll come over here, we'll drag the subdivision surface in, bam. Now our plane's in there. It's going to smooth everything out. It's looking mighty fine, right? I'm going to drag the camera up here to the top just to rearrange things, Next, if I select the subdivision surface and I press Command on my keyboard and click on the helix, now I have all that selected. I can press Option and G and boom, it groups that stuff into a null. Now, if we do that, we could just copy this null by clicking on Command on our keyboard and dragging down. Now we got a duplicate, right? So if I go ahead with the move tool here, or move or transform, I can now move this around, right? So for example, if I move this up a little bit, maybe what I could do is make this a bit smaller. So I'll come over here to my scale, and let's click on the scale to drop this down a little bit. Again, we'll move this around, and we're looking for somewhere where this could sit and it could still look sexy. Maybe this is not it, right? Maybe what we need to do, for example, is if we want to have it here, we could come over here and click this arrow open up the subdivision surface, look for the spline wrap, and mess with the offset. Because maybe what we're looking for is something like, I don't know, hey, bye-bye. Because right here, when you pull it off a certain point, you're taking it off of that spline, the helix, right? So we want to find somewhere that works, and maybe what we want to do is not even that. Let's leave it here for a second. We're going to click on rotation, and let's see what happens if we bring this down to, let's see, I'm going to undo that. I want to make sure that my subdivision surface is selected, and then I'll rotate it like that, right? So maybe if I come in here, where is it? Stopping at 180, boom. Let's bring it up by clicking on that and bringing this puppy up, and maybe here, right? But again, we can come back over here into the spline wrap. We can change where this puppy is going, and maybe, and just, this is a trial and error, guys. I'm going to press Command Z because I need to be on the subdivision surface, and now I could bring this down, and maybe down here, right? Again, coming back to the spline wrap, I can adjust that offset. Whoops. And of course, what I ended up doing is moving everything again, right? So I want it here, right? But do I want this here? No, I don't. So I'll click on the spline wrap again, and we're going to adjust the offset. And as soon as we do that, we notice that we have something glitching here. Is it because I have, maybe it's because I'm not moving the plane? Let's see, huh? No, that's not it. It should be that when we come here to the subdivision surface and we move this puppy down, that it sticks to where I move it to, right? But as soon as I come over here to the spline wrap and I adjust the offset, it's adjusting it. Well, anyways, this looks like what I want. So let's adjust this. Then let's come over here to the subdivision surface. We'll make sure we have this selected. Let's come out a little bit, and let's drop it down a hair, right? Maybe like that. So they're kind of overlapping, right? I'll press 2 on my keyboard to then push it back in. Again, something like this, right? And right now we're in our camera view, so this is what it's going to look like to render. We can rotate things around, for example. So if I come over here and I drop this in, I could group these together by pressing Alt-G, and bam, they're in a new group. Although that moves things around, so let's not do that. So it's just constant, right? All this is to play with and figure out, you know, what you're going for. Let me undo that. Let's click back over here. I think I had this on the wrong spot. Something like that, right? And then if I twist and turn, maybe what I want is something like this and like this. And all I'm doing is pressing 1, 2, or 3 on my keyboard to reposition things, right? 1 is the same as clicking on this, 2 is the same as clicking on this, 3 is the same as clicking on this. We're changing our panning, our tilting, our orbiting, etc., right? And again, right now we're looking in this camera and we are trying to figure out what we want, right? So maybe something like that, zoomed in a bit, a hair more, right? Coming down, out. I don't know. That looks pretty cool, huh? So let's go ahead and select the camera. We'll come over to tags. We'll say Cinema 4D tags, and we'll come down to protection, right? Protect me, baby. Now when I click and drag, I'm not moving anything, and that's cool. So that way we have this locked in place. We need some lights, yo. So I'm going to go ahead. If you have a lighting kit, of course, use a lighting kit. I have the Grayscale Gorilla's Light Kit Pro, but instead I'm just going to show you creating a light inside here. I'm going to just drag this puppy up. I'm going to drag it out. And what we're trying to do here, I'll undo, or I'll get out of my camera view so that I could find this light easier and I could position it exactly where I want, huh? So coming down here, what's going on here? So there's my camera. We want to bring this somewhere, maybe there. Let's duplicate this light by pressing Command on our keyboard, dragging it down. Boom, now we got a second light, right? So maybe we bring this one over here, something like that. I don't know. Let's select the other light and see where it's at just to make sure that we're getting exactly what we want, right? Maybe a little bit down. Let's see. This one maybe a little bit up. I don't know. Light it how you want, right? One of the things I might suggest or recommend is dropping the intensity on these things. Maybe one of them to, this one to 85%, right? Oops. Not 850, 85. We'll select the other light, and then we're going to drop the intensity there, maybe to 70%. And then we'll click on this button right here to come back in, and let's press Command R on our keyboard to get a basic preview of what the hell's going down. So come on, baby. Computer, catch up. That's looking pretty cool, right? If you say, wait a second, it looks a little bit dull, don't worry about that, because what we're going to do is mess with it in Photoshop, baby. So I'm going to go over here. We've got our render settings set up. The only thing we need to do is select our save path. So I'll come over here. I'll click on the three dots. I'll tell it where I want it to put it. And I'll press save. Then after that's there, I'll close this out. I'll press shift or shift R on my keyboard to render to the picture viewer. It's gonna take a few seconds. Probably won't take that long. All right, so in the end, it took 37 seconds, not too shabby. We're gonna close this, and then we're gonna hop back into Photoshop and say, what's up? What's up? What's up? I'm going to close this out because we don't need it. I'm going to close this out because we don't need it. I'm going to close, this out. Let's open up what we just rendered out, huh? Actually, so yeah, let's open up what we just rendered out. But actually, what we want to do is decide what our final output is going to be, right? So I'll press Command N on my keyboard. I'll come over here to print and decide, hey, why don't we print this on A4 or why don't we print this on A3, right? I have some nice A3 paper, and so I'll actually make a print of this, huh? So I'll press Command A to copy this. I'll come over here, I'll press Command V, and boom, we have it in our spot. I'm going to press Command T on my keyboard, and holding down Option on one of the corners, I'm going to bump this up. And maybe something like that for now, right? And it looks like I dropped it in a group by accident. I did not mean to do that. Let's go ahead and delete the group. Next, with this layer selected, we're going to press Command J, and that's going to make a duplicate. Next, I'm going to press Command T to bring up the transform, and what I'm trying to do by holding Option is really cover the screen a lot with this stroke. I'll press Enter, then I'll press Command J to make a duplicate of that. I'll make sure I'm on my move tool by pressing V, and I'll drag this puppy up. And all I'm doing here is making copies so that we cover more of the screen. I'll press Command J again, and now I have a duplicate. I'm going to press Command T, and then I'm going to rotate this around. And I'm just doing it to create some differences in the image, something like that. Now we need the same thing up there. I'll press Command J, and we will press Command T. Let's rotate this puppy around again. Let's bring it over here maybe. And then on this particular one, why don't we make sure that we cut off some of this? So I'm going to make sure I'm on the lasso tool. I'll come over here. I don't know, something like that. And this just added different interests. Maybe pressing Command T to make sure. I'll press Command 0 to zoom out a bit. And maybe I want to make sure that that covers. So I'll pull one of the edges by pressing Command and clicking on that edge and pulling it. I'll press Enter, and now we have this cool looking, I don't know, right? It's basically the stroke that we made duplicated a bunch of times to cover and fill the screen. I'll highlight the first layer and the last layer of this background stuff, not including what we have back here with our stroke. Huh? I'll press Command E to merge them, and just to show you that it's just is now just one layer. Huh? Next, I'll press Command and click on this. Whoops, Command and click on the background. Make sure you have it. There we go. I'll play. Unlock the layer. Brain is stalling, right? I need a reboot. I need more coffee. That's what the problem is, right? I unlock the layer by double clicking on the background layer. Then I press Command on my keyboard. I clicked on this layer to make this a selection, right? I'll come up to selection. I'll click on transform selection. I'll press Option on one of the corners, and I'll drag this in. What we're doing is we're creating a border here. I'll press Enter, and boom. Now I have this going as a border. I'll select this layer here, and I'll press Command and click on Add Layer Mask. Look at this. What a beautiful border, you say. And I say, hey, thank you very much. Anyways, let's duplicate this layer by pressing Command J while having it selected, and let's invert this layer by pressing not invert the layer, invert the mask by selecting the mask, pressing Command I, and now more or less we got some cool stuff going on. I'm going to drag this below. Next, we can drag our paint stroke to the top. It's still hidden, that's fine. Let's select this bottom layer to be black. I'll press D on my keyboard to bring up my default colors. Now that black is my foreground color, I can press Option Delete and it fills that layer with black. That's important because the layer above it we're going to come to, and we're going to change its opacity to, I don't know, maybe 20%. And now what we've done is we've created this cool background with cool border just by duplicating this paint stroke a bunch of times, creating a mask to create the border, and then making sure that this inner mask has a low opacity so you can see through to the black layer below it. I'll turn this layer back on, and you know what we're looking like right now is maybe this is not dark enough. So why don't we make this, I don't know, 15, 10, 15, see what that looks like. 10 looks better. However, we're going to bump up the brightness of this, and let's reposition it. I'll press T on, I don't need to press T, my bad. I'll press Command T to make sure that we can adjust this. I'll go ahead and press Option on my keyboard with one of these end corners, and boom. That's pretty cool. Bring it in a little bit. I don't want it to be touching the sides. Next, I'll press Shift and drag on one of these two handles so that we can bring this, make it a little bit longer. Yeah. I'll press Shift on my keyboard while I drag it up to reposition it. Now it says it's in the center. I'll press Enter, and that looks pretty cool. Next, I'll come over here to Adjustments, or I can come here and I can select... why don't we select a curves adjustment? When we do that, we can click on this button to create a clipping mask or clipping path to the layer below. And now the changes that we make. I'm going to click here not to make changes to anything in the shadows, but in the bright area, I'm going to bump this up a bit. Something to this effect. I don't know. And this is just a before and after of that. That's popping a bit more. Next, what we can do is create a new layer by clicking on this button right here. Let's press I on our keyboard to bring up our eyedropper, and let's select a few colors. I'm going to select this blue. I'll press X to swap my foreground and background colors, and let's find another color in this. Maybe, and right now all I'm doing is clicking and dragging with the eyedropper selected, and it will help you find the color you want. So with these two colors right here, I'm going to come over to this blank layer. I'm going to press B on my keyboard, and let's make sure that we have a soft brush selected. So up here, I definitely need to organize these brushes better. So now it's about this size. We can click on our brackets to make it larger, and I'm just going to click and just paint some of these dots on. And so next I'll press X on my keyboard to swap my foreground and background colors. I'll make this a bit bigger, and let's add some blues, right? Maybe something like this. That looks pretty cool, But let's come over here to the blend modes, and let's select this to be, I don't know if hue is the right way or color. Probably color, After setting color, what we could do on off, just a comparison, is drop the opacity of this down to 60% maybe. And now, just a comparison, it just adds a little bit of melding, etc. Next, maybe what we want to do is add some paint splatters. I'll click on this button right here to create another layer. I'll make sure that I click over here on my brushes, and you're going to have to find these yourself. I made these splatter brushes. If you can find them online and you can make your own, etc. If I click on the bracket keys, I can make this bigger. If I click over here, I could change its orientation so that maybe this is like something like this. And again, I'm still using these colors here, right? And then I can come back and I can make this, change the orientation of this, and maybe I want it like that. Then I'll make this even bigger, something right there. And then maybe, again, by changing the direction each time, it doesn't look as overused, you know what I mean? You don't want to have it too overused. And maybe this, let's see, where will this go? Like that? There we go. Something like that. Next, I'm going to switch my colors, and let's make some smaller versions of that. Plus, let's switch. I have another splatter right there. Let's change the orientation. Let's see where it's facing, and maybe this is something like that. And again, we'll come here, we'll change the brush orientation, and maybe this something like that. And then again, we'll change the brush orientation, and maybe something like that. Let's make it bigger by using the brackets. I'm not even going to change the orientation. I'll just drop it there. Let's come back here and maybe have it facing right? Something like this. Press once, press once, press once. There we go. And so this is our splatter. Do we leave our splatter like this? Probably not, yo. What I think maybe we change the blend mode, and let's see what will look nice. Maybe we don't even change the blend mode. Let's just change the opacity. Drop this down to 30, I don't know. And then maybe if we drop this below our paint stroke layer, then the paint stroke layer is not affected by it, right? Another thing we can do if we want, you know, before and after, is we can come up to the filter, we can say blur, select Gaussian blur, and maybe if we just make this like 3 pixels, we're blurring this stuff out a little bit, I don't know, making things a bit softer, and that's kind of cool in my opinion, right? Next, we can come up here, create a new layer, and after we create this new layer, we'll press D on our keyboard to bring up our default colors, foreground and background. I'll press X to make sure that white is my foreground color. I'll press Option, Delete, and that fills this layer with white, huh? Next, anyways, I'm going to switch back to a soft brush because I definitely don't need that splatter brush anymore. And I'm not actually, I'm just doing it because it was bothering me, huh? Not because I'm even going to use that brush. I'll switch over here to the gradient tool. I'll make sure black and white is selected. I'll create a layer mask for this layer. And when I drag this down, what we're doing right here is creating a gradient from of this white layer that is totally white. We're creating a gradient to fill, huh? And if I press shift, it keeps this line, it constrains it, huh, to 45-degree angles. Maybe something like this. We do that, then we'll come over here, switch it to screen, and maybe drop the opacity to, I don't know, 20. And maybe let's make this maybe a bit bigger, huh? So like something like that. That's okay. However, I think because we did that, we're going to have to come over here. We're going to add a curves adjustment layer. We're going to pull this down a bit. We're going to pop that up right here. And now the top is a little brighter than the bottom. Next, let's combine all these layers by pressing Command, Option, Shift, and E. And what that does is it merges all the layers into a new layer. And now this layer is by himself, right? It's everything by himself. So I showed you that by hiding everything, and just now I can turn it on and off. And what we can do is we can come over here to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and we can make some more final adjustments. Maybe bumping up the texture, maybe increasing some contrast right here. Maybe we say, hey, these highlights are a bit rough. Or maybe not the highlights, just the whites, to tone them down just a hair, right? If we want to bump up the saturation, although this is highly saturated, so let's just bump up the vibrance, right? Put a plus 20. If you want to add some vignette, you can come over here. If you put plus, then you're creating a white vignette. If you put minus, you're creating a black vignette. We can change where this midpoint is, and maybe something like that. That's looking pretty cool. One of the things I forgot to do is maybe add some text. If you wanted to, you could add some text behind the paint stroke, in front of the paint stroke. It's up to you. Guys, I hope you like this tutorial. I'll press Command 0 on my keyboard to fill my screen with this. I hope you like this tutorial. You found it useful, etc., etc. Please share the video with your friends. It means the world to me. We're trying to boost this channel's engagement. People who like this kind of stuff, etc. Like, subscribe, you know the deal. Until next time, guys, I'm out.